Before I get to Saturday's complimentary plays, let's once again, as I did in last Saturday's video report, talk about the two most critical factors when it comes to handicapping college football, and that is the look ahead and the letdown situation. Because as I pointed out in last Saturday's video report, guys, always keep in mind that you are betting money on college football teams that are consisting of 17 to 23-year-old young men. And they are always going to be prone to the letdown and the look ahead. It doesn't happen as much in college basketball, but listen, it happens then too. It happens in pro football, happens in pro basketball, and it especially more so than any other sport happens in college football. So I gave you about 8 or 9 games last week, and if you recall, in about 75% of them, I was right on the money. So as I handicapped this busy Saturday card, I came across a few games, and I wanted to point them out to you. You've got North Carolina, a 10.5-point favorite at Georgia Tech. Well, you saw how bad Georgia Tech was once again last week in that 24-2 loss against Temple. North Carolina gave Clemson all it could handle. Shoulda, coulda, but didn't beat the Tigers. Now, North Carolina is a 10.5 to 11-point favorite. The Tar Heels should easily beat Georgia Tech. But after coming so close to knocking off the then #1 team, how did the Tar Heels get up and get ready for a bad, rambling wreck team? Now, Mack Brown has done a phenomenal job, and I got to be honest with you, I thought North Carolina was a little crazy. I thought the Tar Heels were a little desperate, reaching back into their past to take Mack Brown as their head coach this year, but he has done a great job. Can he, as he always has been, a master motivator, get his Tar Heels up for this game? Not a game I'm willing to invest on, but it's one I think that you have to be careful about. A game I talked about last week, Wisconsin was laying like 23.5 points at home against Northwestern, and I told you Wisconsin should have easily beaten Northwestern, but you had to be concerned that Wisconsin was coming off a huge win, of course, the prior week against Michigan, and you saw how the Badgers struggled to win that game, only 24-15. Well, today they were a 35-point favorite at home against Kent State. They should mop the floor with the Golden Flashes, but they host Michigan State next week, and this is one of those non-conference games that comes into the middle of the early section of a conference slate, and again, it's a sandwich situation. Difficult spot for the Badgers to be up for this early in the conference schedule. I think it's a tough spot, especially when you're asking the Badgers, not a prolific offensive team, to be laying 35 points. Oklahoma, I used them last week as my 35-point burial blowout of the year, and you know what they did, 55-16 over Texas Tech, making me an easy winner with that raise-the-bar 20-dime release. They're at Kansas today. They're laying 32. They might cover that number in the first half. But you know who they play next week, UT, the Longhorns. Need I say more? They should win this game by 132 points today. Will they? Could they? Maybe. Are you willing to lay 32 points? As I told you in last Sunday's video report after cashing in with the Sooners, you cannot be shying away in college football from laying big double-digit margins with teams because you're going to always find blowouts on Saturdays. This is not one of those times, however, I'm recommending to lay the big chalk, especially in this situation with Oklahoma clearly knowing they can kick Kansas's ass because they've got Texas around the corner. Same thing for the Longhorns. Listen, Longhorns have some injury concerns, especially in the secondary. Their quarterback's a little banged up, although he is going to be playing today. They're a 10.5-point favorite at West Virginia. The only thing I will say, however, in this particular situation is that Texas is also playing in revenge because, remember, last year playing in Austin, Mountaineers won in the final second. So it's a revenge situation. How about Notre Dame? They're coming off a 35-20 win at home against Virginia. They're laying 46 against Bowling Green. Now, Bowling Green's awful. The Falcons are 0-4. They're coming off a 62-20 loss at Kent 2 weeks ago. They previously lost 35-7 at home to Louisiana Tech and 52-0 at Kansas State. But Notre Dame has Southern Cal next week. Not that USC is that good, but Notre Dame's got to be focused on the Trojans more than they have to be concerned with Bowling Green, and I don't know if Notre Dame has enough offense to win this game by 50 points. So those are the games that I think you have to be most concerned with on today's card. With that being said, let's turn to what's going on here for today. As for me, I thought it was a brilliant idea last night to have a normal top-rated 15-dime play on the Dodgers on the run line because, hey, I was getting $1.35 laying the 1.5 runs. Steven Strasburg was making the first ever start of his 10-year career on 3 days rest, and I thought, go against the Nationals. Didn't quite turn out that well. But you know me, I never let yesterday, win or lose, the outcome, affect how I play today. And just like last Saturday when I had that rare raise the bar 20-dime release, I'm coming out with another one today. 2019 Revenge Game of the Year. It is the best game on today's card. It's the one game when I handicapped today's card was screaming, bet me, bet me, bet me. And you know, guys, when those little voices are whispering in your ear, you don't ignore them. Or if you're hearing those voices all during the day, well, that's a different case entirely. So it's going to be the half price play of the day, and you can get it for half price by using the coupon code REVENGE. And the other big play is by a hot guy, Bob Valentino, who has the second ever 150-dime college play of his career, Baylor and Kansas State, a game that I'm going to break down here next. Hit his first ever one with UL Lafayette. Rolling big as a 3-point favorite, winning by 13 at Georgia Southern last week. You got it for over half price off. He's coming off a 100-dime best bet winner, number 15-23 on San Jose State last night over New Mexico. You get it for over half price off by using coupon code BOBV, B-O-B-V. Now, let's talk about that. All the other discounts and promos are over on the homepage. Let's talk about the game between Kansas State and Baylor today. Baylor is another one of those teams. Last week, at home, they opened up a 20-0 lead against Iowa State. Iowa State comes back, takes the lead, 21-20. Baylor kicks the field goal with a minute to play. Iowa State driving, and Baylor holds on for the win. Right? Dramatic win. Matt Rule's team proves to 4-0, but now they're on the road in Manhattan, taking on a Kansas State team that, coming off a bye, just got their you-know-whats handed to them by Iowa State last week or Oklahoma State, because in Stillwater, a tough place to play, they could not stop the run because the Cowboys' Chuba Hubbard ran for 296 yards, and no, that is not a misspoken word that I just said, 296 yards. Their offense could only muster 244 yards against a bad Oklahoma State defense as well. But listen, this is a team that is now back at home in Manhattan. Baylor hasn't really played anybody this season, and now they're on the road. Then again, Kansas State really hasn't played anybody either. Their biggest win was at Mississippi State, and we saw Mississippi State really last week how bad they are, right? But I do like Kansas State in this particular spot, minus the 1.5 points. It is a revenge game for Kansas State. Last year, they lost 37-34 in Waco on a 29-yard field goal with 8 seconds to play. I think it's a very competitive price because of Baylor's win last week at home. Otherwise, Kansas State would be laying 3.5. You're getting them at 1.5. So I'm going with the Wildcats here, a team that's only giving up 16 points a game because Baylor, I don't think, is going to be running wild like Oklahoma State did against K-State a week ago. Another game that I like tonight, listen, Georgia is a 24.5 point favorite in Knoxville tonight against Tennessee. Georgia could be a 34.5 point favorite, and I still think I'd lay it with the Bulldogs. This is a Tennessee program that is in total disarray. You saw the problem that arose here a couple of nights ago. It first broke on TMZ with the punk Jeremy Banks, who eventually was booted off the team by Jeremy Pruitt, the head coach. I don't know how much longer Philip Fulmer or Jeremy Pruitt are going to be around there. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt obviously is over his head in terms of being a head coach there. That program is just a total joke, laughing stock of the SEC. They kicked Banks off the team last night because another video surfaced. Not that he was a key contributor. He was a starting linebacker, had a couple of interceptions. But this Tennessee team is just dreadful. They're starting a freshman quarterback today. I think Georgia coming off a bye was the most important thing here because it allowed the Bulldogs a little time since they beat Notre Dame in that thriller 23-17 a couple of Saturdays ago. First road game since beating Vanderbilt 30-6 back on August 21st. They don't have a look-ahead game because their next game is at home against South Carolina. Tennessee has been idle since that 34-3 loss at Florida 2 Saturdays ago. I just don't see anything that would give you any indication that Tennessee can be competitive in this game. You know, Georgia ran for 251 yards and last year's 38-12 home win. The Dogs' defense is giving up just 2.3 yards per carry. Georgia's averaging almost 43 points a game. They're 15th in the nation in total offense, averaging almost 510 yards of offense a game. They're 12th in rushing, averaging 253 yards a game. They're only giving up defensively 10 points a game. I don't have to go any further. I just, again, think that you could lay 34 and Georgia should roll in this contest. So those are your complimentary plays there. I like Kansas State, as I said, minus the 1.5 on the early card. I like Georgia on the late card, laying the 24.5 points. One other game. I forgot. Ohio State, minus 20 at home against Michigan State. Michigan State, ever since that loss at home against Arizona State, has shown me, just as it has in previous years, great defense, can't score any points. Ohio State, though, is every bit nearly the match of Michigan State defensively this season. Really. But the difference is the Buckeyes can put points on the board. Now, the Buckeyes are a better defensive team than they were a year ago. Michigan State is equal defensively as it was a year ago. The difference with the Buckeyes this year and last year offensively, really not a damn thing. Honest to God. Yeah, Dwayne Haskins is gone, but Justin Fields has picked up the pace, picked up the slack. I don't even know if he's picked up the slack, really. I mean, the offense is just purring along. Fields, 16 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 70% completion, 7 rushing touchdowns. They've got the running back, J.K. Dobbins. He's coming off the 177-yard rushing performance at Nebraska, 654 yards on the season, second in the nation in rushing. Ohio State is averaging 281 rushing yards a game. Now, granted, Michigan State is only giving up 1.86 yards per carry to opposing backs. But I ask you this, who the hell has Michigan State played? Really nobody. And that Michigan State defense, I told you, last year, great defense as well. Last year, it was a 9-6 game at Lansing going into the fourth quarter, and then Ohio State pulled away for the win and won it handily. I'm willing to lay the 20 points with Ohio State here at home because I just don't think Michigan State has anything going offensively in this game. And I think Ohio State will win this game somewhere. I think it's going to be like a 34-10 game. I just don't think Michigan State's going to be able to do anything in this game. So if I had to rank these 3 plays, I'd say Ohio State and Georgia are probably tied there at the top, and I'd say Kansas State is right behind them. A couple of other games I kind of lean toward. I kind of like Auburn a little bit over Florida today as well. I lean a little bit towards Colorado, minus the 3.5 at home, and triple revenge against Arizona as well, especially with Khalil Tate questionable for the game. If he plays, he's not going to be the guy that's going to be running like crazy and torturing the Colorado defense. I would buy down the 0.5 point in that one. But the official free plays, again, Ohio State and Georgia with Kansas State, and that'll do it. I wish you well, and I'll talk to you again on Sunday.